I'm Kate,
I'm Elle.
and we are your two last brain cells, down to Faye. We're continuing our Throne of Glass deep dive this week with the tandem read of Empire of Storms, chapters 31 through 33, and Tower of Dawn, chapters 31 through 35. What's crazy is next week, it's going to be all Empire of Storms. And then I think the next week,
big
too,
things
is Empire.
happening.
Yes, because it's getting to like the big battle, like we're leading up to it.
We can't just cut off in the middle of that. Like, you have to get through this.
I know, even though it's a tandem, like there have been a couple times where I'm like, fuck, I don't want to switch over to Tower of Dawn. But this is like, you cannot switch in the middle of that battle.
Yeah, well, because the next chapter in Tower of Dawn, 36, picks up right after everything happens. So, like, you can't discuss it until you've finished Empire of Storms.
But first, in celebration of Pride Month, we have put together a list of characters we think are or should have been like on the spectrum of identifying as gay or like bi panic or everything in between. This is just like our wish list, our gay wish list. So I want to start out with Throne of Glass. And I mean, I've talked about this. I think the real love story is Chaol and Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had just tied their dicks together and gotten married, that would have been like, you're the hand of the king. Give the king a hand. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, wink, wink.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, I love who they end up with. And it's the same with Manon. Like Manon is for the girls, specifically for a lead.
Absolutely.
There were vibes.
There were definite vibes. And the nude sleeping. Like,
yes,
just
you
taunting her.
I just think, I mean, I love who both of them end up with. And I mean, everyone could have been involved. I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. It's a spectrum.
Sure.
And, you know, there's actually, I feel like, more representation, what's crazy, in Throne of Glass than her other series. Just like, we have Adian and we have, who was the couple at Mistward?
Oh, shoot.
It's Imris.
Yeah, I already forgot. Imris and
Malachi?
Something like that.
Yeah, like, wow. My last brain cell. So I feel like we had that, and like there's a couple in ACOTAR. Like, we got more for whatever that's worth, but
I think she had so much more time developing Throne of Glass.
That's true.
Not that anything was meant to be left out. Especially Crescent City. She crammed so much in there so quickly. That
we did have Fury and Juniper, and then Hypaxia.
Yeah, Hypaxia, and I've already forgotten the governor's name.
Micah? No,
the girl.
Celestina?
Celestina, you're right.
Oh my God. I'm like, my brain is really working right now.
You've taken both brain cells today. Congratulations.
I've left you with none. I also think all those nights on the road, the cadre, there was not at least like, I don't know what you would call a coordinated jack off of like at the same time.
There's a circle jerk.
Well, a circle jerk for sure, but then also just like, we're not going to talk about it, but we all just start jerking off at the same time.
God, that would be, I just want to read, like, I
just
want
like the sounds, the heavy breathing. If someone could put that as like a white noise machine.
I mean, there had to have been crossed swords a few times with them.
Well, like, you know, things get confusing. It's the same with the Bat Boys.
Do they in the dark?
Well, like, okay, the Bat Boys have all fucked in the same room. Like, you don't know what hole, and you just like, things happen.
Oh my gosh, at least the tips.
At least they've touched tips, especially Az. I feel like Az, I know a lot of people are like, oh, Az needs to be with Elaine, but the Cauldron has spoken and chosen Lucian. And I like, if you're like, okay, well, the Cauldron is corrupt, then we're going to have to talk about Rhys and Feyre. And I don't think anybody's ready for that.
Uh-oh.
But also Rhys and Tamlin, if we're talking about real enemies to lovers.
Or like lovers to enemies, because lovers make the greatest enemies.
Yeah. Maybe like, maybe when they were younger, something happened.
Well, they clearly broke up somewhere along the lines.
Yes.
But like Az and Eris, I would love to read that.
There's a lot of fanfic for that.
Yeah. Well, there's like a redemption coming for Eris, because we don't really know him well.
There's a lot more to him. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then in Empyrean series, I honestly thought Imogen was like canon. I thought that she was gay until whatever was going on with Garrick. But I feel like that series is more like the sexuality is more fluid, like it's less defined, which is nice. So she could be like, I don't know where they're going to end up. But I also think that with Mira, with Violet's sister, I got a vibe that she wasn't going to be into men. But then it seems like they're trying to set something up with Mira and Drake.
Well, that could just be like based on the person, not necessarily because it's a man.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be Mira and Serena, and
Mhm.
now it feels like it's gonna be Drake, but I would honestly be happy with either.
There's still time.
There's still time. There is, yeah, and then with Crescent City, I kept waiting for there to be a moment where it's like, "Okay, like, I love you and I love my friends." The way Bryce mourned for her
Continue to
was
mourn Danica?
yeah,
Yeah.
I just and the way how close they were, I was like, "Was there something more going on here?" And I kinda thought that Danica was going to be, and then Baxian came into the picture.
Well, and I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't still something more,
Yeah.
you know? But even, like, since we just talked about Black Dagger Brotherhood recently, and we know that Vicious is bi, but the
Mhm.
bond that he has with Butch,
It
it
was
is
why
so
didn't
much
she follow
deeper.
through with that? It seemed like it was setting up, and then it just kind of like they found their mates and settled down, but, like, they actually touched tips.
Like, literally, that did
Literally!
happen, but I think that there definitely could have been a very torrid night together
Mhm.
that they needed it.
Where, like, they're drinking, and then it's like it starts out as a joke, and then it happens, and, like, I don't even care if they hate each other after.
Because even after they're mated off, there's still that connection that you're like,
Well, they
this is
have to, so,
something."
like, if you've never read Black Dagger, when Butch, like, he kinda, like, inhales the lessers, like, the
Mhm.
evil, the villains, and he has to, like, get rid of it's kind of like smoke, isn't it? Or, like,
Yeah, the way he
whatever
inhales it.
yeah, he has to, like, get rid of it, and V has to help him, so he has to hold him.
Vicious literally has a healing touch, but he has to, like, wrap his
Like,
arms
his
around him.
entire body is wrapped around him, and you're like, "You're telling me this is like, no one has a boner right now?"
Well, even okay, so when Butch got initiated into the Brotherhood, like, everybody's naked because
Mhm.
it's ceremonial,
I
but,
mean,
like
obviously.
obviously, but, like, Vicious had to bite Butch, and
Mhm.
he got like, their bodies were touched, like, shoulders to feet, like, they
Yep.
were hip whatever, they were lined up
Shou
complete
shou the
I mean, his
just
feet
the
were there.
shoulders and the feet.
Those tips are definitely touching, but the point is they're,
Yeah.
like, smushed together, and they're having a really emotional moment, and you're like, "You telling me, like, that just was
Just have
clearly."
some bi panic, like, as someone who identifies as bi
It would
panic,
definitely be
have
panic for
some.
Butch.
Oh, Butch would like I think he would definitely be fine with it, but Butch would have panicked, and I
I
also
mean, V is, like,
feel
in love with Butch before he gets mated,
I think so too.
but also swapping over to, like, Harry Potter, Professor
Yeah.
Snape,
Yeah.
definitely, like, a
You know what?
snarky queen.
I've never said it out loud. I read fan fiction, and it was Harry and Snape, like, "Don't leave me.
Whoa.
Don't." Okay, and then when I went to Jasmine Mass's book signing,
Mhm.
she was talking about how much she loves Hermione and, like, that she loves the Germani fan fiction.
Yeah, I
And
really
she was like,
see.
"Honestly, one time I read something about Harry and Snape, and I wanted to stand up and start cheering and be like, 'Me too. We're loud and we're proud.'" Like, we both read the same thing unless there's multiple.
I don't know about Harry and Snape. I could absolutely see Harry and Draco
Yeah, that's enemies to lovers.
because it's truly like, you guys,
Like, do you really
there's a
hate each other
connection
that
there.
much? Like, there's a very fine line between love
Why
and
are you
hate.
always so worried about what the other one is doing, you know?
Potter.
Potter.
You know, he's actually going back to the Broadway show.
Oh, really?
He's
I
gonna be
love
in it
that.
as, like, older Draco, obviously. He's
That would
not gonna be
be
kid Draco.
so fun. Well, if we talk about Zodiac Academy,
I
and we talk
really
about
wanna do a Zodiac Academy deep dive.
we need to, and I did we ever do a deep dive for the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac?
I don't know if we did no, we did a standalone
Did we?
episode,
Okay, there's
yeah.
just so much to talk about with that world. But Darius and Lance have such a tight bond that it
I
goes beyond friendship
I
again.
love, like, an age gap professor-student. I know that there was a
Mhm.
lot more to that bond, but, yeah, I mean, we got a lot with Seth and Caleb. I loved that storyline,
Yeah,
but I think,
it's an
yeah,
untold story.
yes.
There's just Happy
They were
Pride Month.
very it kind yeah, happy Pride
This
Month,
is like
everyone.
there's so much more that we could wax poetic about, with
Well,
these
you saying
characters.
of some who did you say was biting somebody? It made me think of in Black Dagger, when they had to bite Butch.
Oh, yeah, because they have to do, like, flesh of your flesh.
I started listening to a new audiobook that recently came out. It's not a new book, but it's new to me, and it's called The Poisoner. I'll talk about
That
it
sounds good.
fully when I'm done with it, but the audiobook is so fucking good. It's a duet, and it is, like, immersive, like, they became these characters. Their accents are perfect, like, the guy so the MMC is he's, like, vampire adjacent. He's, like, not straight up vampire. I think he's kind of like a snake-ish,
What?
and he sounds like Lestat. Like, I am so tired of books where it is the reluctant, "I hate myself, I'm a monster vampire."
Mhm.
This guy is unhinged. He's killing everyone and, like, leaving her dead bodies as presents. Like, he has no like, he's
Oh, he's
truly
bringing her
yeah,
presents.
well, it's
Wow.
like everyone asks for morally gray, but what they want is a good guy who dresses like he shops at Hot Topic.
Uh-huh.
This is morally gray. This is a bad guy who just happens to be into this one woman.
She brings out a softer side, but
Yes,
barely.
and so he bites her, and it's like venom that he can kind of inject because he had but she's also so she's called the poisoner because she poisons men, like,
Okay.
specifically bad men. And so in the beginning, she's talking about, "I wear black every day because somewhere in the world a man has died, and that's cause for celebration." I was like, "Fuck yeah." Like,
Wow.
I'm in, and it is 1800s. I guess what's in London,
Okay.
and so it's very, like, gothic vibes.
That's fun.
And yeah, so she's the poisoner and she's been poisoning men, but there's some men that it's not killing and she can't figure it out. And it turns
Oh.
out because they are
Whatever these snake.
yeah, it's like Viperia I can't remember what they call it.
Okay.
But so far it's really interesting because he is very cat and mouse where he likes to break into her house and like chase her around and she like is like genuinely terrified, but he's like, "We're having so much fun." And he's very Lestat. Like he's very like you know how Lestat was with Louis.
It's funny, I'm laughing because it sounds like she thought she was the badass, and, like, she's kind of in
Yes.
over her head with him, and she's like, "Whoa."
And she keeps trying to, like, kill him and poison him, and he's like, "I love her so much."
This is
Like,
so
every time
fun.
that she, like, stabs him and, like, tries to like, she put cyanide in his whiskey or something, and he's like, "We're having so much fun."
It's actually adorable.
I know, I really like it, and the narrator that I meant to look up who the male narrator was. He's so good because he sounds like, it sounds like I'm listening to a movie. Like, it's
Okay.
that level.
Like, they're actually, like, acting together as
Yes.
they read through this.
And there's not like a bunch of sound effects, but so when he's like excited or mad, there's this rattle. And
Oh,
I
because
don't
he's
think it's
supposed to
like
be
but
like a
it's not like
rattlesnake.
yeah, it's not like his tail or anything. It's like his chest, but it makes this but they actually put it in there and it doesn't sound like corny. Like every time you kind of hear it where she's like alone in her house, but then she hears it off in the shadows and it's
Ooh,
like
that's
very
scary.
ominous and I know, I love it so
That
far.
reminds me of Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac
Mhm.
because is it Ryder that
The
has the
basilisk?
basilisk
Yes.
rattle? Yeah,
That's where I thought we were going when she was talking about what they were, but she calls it something else that
especially with the
looks like
venom and the
viper.
poison. Okay.
So I'm really enjoying that. And I wanna start the God, what's it called? Curse, the A Fate Inked in Blood book 2. Like,
Oh,
that
okay.
came out and the audiobook is out, and I've heard that it's really good because it also has a male narrator, and I think that he's actually Norwegian or Swedish or something, like something that would
Gosh.
fit the mood. But I wanna read that one so I can take notes because I wanna do, like, a deep dive episode like we did with A Fate Inked in Blood because I do love that
Yeah,
series.
I need to read back over that because it ended on a cliffhanger.
Well, it ended with us being so fucking mad at Bjorn.
I mean, were we fully mad?
I was mad. I think we were both
The
pretty
FMC
mad.
was mad, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm that
She did keep
mad.
throwing herself in the water, but, like, all of her limbs were tied up. You're
I
like,
mean,
What are
I
you
feel like
doing?"
he was also doing the right thing,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think that'd be really exciting to we'll have
And
to
I
do
don't
a
remember
deep
if it's a
dive.
duology or if there's gonna be 3 of them. But The Poisoner, I don't think the second one is out yet, that's the only problem.
Damn it. I hate when we start a good
I
series and then we
know.
can't keep it going. We
Well, it's
can, it just takes too long.
I didn't know what to listen to after what did I just finish? God, it's like I finish it like, while I'm listening, a book will be my entire personality, and then
Was it
after I'm like,
Nocticadia recently?
"That was a while ago." I was listening to something. Oh, On Wings of Blood.
Oh, okay.
So I finished On Wings of Blood, really loved it, can't wait for the second one, and I keep thinking that I've aged out of the whole, like, school bully thing, and then I get sucked right back in, and I'm like, "I wonder if I'm ever gonna be too old for a school setting romance," but apparently not.
I don't know, I like that trope too. It's hard not to like it.
Well, I, like, put it out there, I was like, "What should I listen to next?" And someone was like, "Listen to this," and they just sent a screenshot, and it's, like, a very aesthetic, vibey cover, and I was
Okay.
like, "Got it." Because no one who's gonna know us better of, like, what we're gonna like? The people that listen to this podcast and, like, the algorithm.
Exactly. Same page.
Yeah. So I will talk about that one in the future.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear
But read
more.
the trigger warnings, like, if you're gonna start it, because it is
Wait, the
it's
poisoner, you mean?
yeah, for
Okay.
the poisoner, it's probably along the same lines of, like, how you were surprised by some things in
Anathema?
Anathema,
Okay.
because it's very dark. It is
So
dark romance.
maybe Eater is or is not my speed. I'll have to check
Mhm.
into it though. Well, today we're picking back up in Empire of Storms, chapter 31, with confirmation that Rolf could see the word key on the map tattooed on his hands after he sent someone to the dead end alley where Lysandra was wearing the amulet of Orinth.
Which Adian and Lysandra still don't know is a word key. That's crazy to me.
I
I'm not gonna talk about this every single time and
Yeah.
be a broken record. I still think it's weird. Like, okay, on the one hand, Adian is like a human body. Like, he doesn't have a face side where he can shift. And I guess could like what's his name?
But he has
Arabin
the
couldn't feel it when he like if you're a human, you can't feel it. But Adian has advanced senses.
Well, Arabin had no magic whatsoever. Adian definitely still has face senses, and he could sense the black ring from the king. So there's no way
Exactly.
he can't sense there's something
Mhm.
weird here.
And Lysandra's probably just such a ride or die that she's not like if she's like she feels it and is like, I trust her, like that whatever is going on
I feel like they both, even if they don't know it's a word key, they know that it is something more. They
than a
just haven't
necklace.
aggressively questioned her on it yet.
But it's also confirmation that Rolf is like living in fear of the Vogue pulling back up to Skull's Bay. So it's a good sign we can use fear, and she does. But we don't know exactly what the map showed him, if he could tell the difference between the word key and the wordstone rings his men were enslaved with, or if he'd be able to use it to locate the lock that Brandon told Aelin to find, because that's really what all of this is about.
Yeah, I do wonder because he's looking at this map and it looks like the ocean, how it distinguishes between treasure, danger, like when they're
Yeah, is
like
it like
looking
a
for
live
something.
stream of the ocean, or is like, yeah, do you have to be him to be able to interpret it?
Can you see what it is
'Cause
specifically?
I like, can you imagine just laying in bed with him and watching his hands? Is
I
that
mean,
stupid?
I honestly would be like, what's next? What's happening now?
I know,
Like, it's too interesting.
or like he's finger banging you,
Oh,
or I just feel like there's a lot of fun things.
there's a lot that could happen with those hands. Just past midnight, Aelin and Rowan go on a cute little B&E date, but find Gavriel and Fenris are waiting for
It is
them.
so embarrassing that they're sneaking around, jumping rooftop to rooftop, using his wind to, like, unlock the window, and it swings open, and they're just like, "You could have used the door."
I mean, these females are not young. There's nothing new here. Come on.
But Aelin points out that's not nearly dramatic enough, and she and Fenris have this weird it's like they're smiling at each other, but they're actually just baring their teeth, which you're like, "Okay, yeah, they're fey, they have, like, their animal side," but if you actually think about this and try to picture it, it's such an ick.
Well, like, even just the baring the teeth, I kind of looked at it like a companionship. Like, we're not on the
Mhm.
same team yet, but we understand each other and we could have a lot of fun together. Like, I just felt like they were like, even though they're baring their teeth, it didn't feel like a
But
threat.
we can agree that Chaol baring his teeth is embarrassing.
Yeah, that's where it's weird because at
'Cause you're
least
just a man.
at least Fenris and Aelin have fangs. Like, what are you doing? When Aelin asks about her sweet Aunt Maeve's plans, Gavriel's like, "You have the audacity to break into my room and ask me a blood sworn about information from my queen, but you won't even let me see my son?"
When Aelin says that's up to Adian, she doesn't have the time to care, kitty cat friend. Fenris points out, yeah, it must be hard to find time to care when you're facing a mortal lifespan, which makes it super awkward. Like he says the quiet part out loud because Aelin and Rowan obviously have been thinking about this a lot, like whether, like separately, whether Aelin, she's demi-fae. I mean, like she is very special demi-fae, but
Mhm.
we don't know for sure that she's gonna be immortal after her settling.
The settling is the transition pure blooded and some demi-fae go through once their bodies lock into immortal youth. It can be a rough process, their bodies and their magic needing months to adjust.
And it's biological usually, like, we'll see it can be there are different, like, avenues for the settling, but Aelin comes from 2 powerful bloodlines. So even if like, the way I look at it, even if she doesn't have a large quantity of Fey blood, she has quality Fey blood, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm.
there's no way to know for sure, but the odds are good.
Do we know if her mom was immortal? Was that ever discussed?
I don't know if we got to find
If
I
she ever
guess she would
settled?
have settled because well, you don't always know for sure what age it's gonna happen.
I think it's usually I feel like somewhere they discuss it's usually around, like, 25 or,
Mhm.
like
And she had to have at least been that,
but I
right?
can't remember if that
Aylin died she was 8. I mean, she wouldn't have been, like, a teen
yeah,
mom.
but I don't know if it was ever really discussed
Yeah.
if she had settled.
Well, I'm
Just curious.
interested in how settling connects to the other books.
Mhm.
So, like in Crescent City, we have the drop, and Vanir, like they fall into their power and then they reach their power bottom and their mortal body dies and they have 6 minutes, very specific. Is that actually how long it takes your brain to die without oxygen?
I think
Maybe
your
that's why.
yeah, I think your brain can go, like, maybe 5 minutes without oxygen.
Because they have to race back up before, yeah, their brain like shuts down from lack of oxygen. And when they make the drop, there's, like, raw, unfiltered magic called First Light, and it is or it was, air quote, "donated" and used as energy. I'm very curious how Midgard is gonna do with no longer having like, it was awful what the Asteria was doing, but y'all aren't gonna have cell phones anymore. They're gonna be, like, pushed back to the dark ages without First Light. I don't know what's gonna happen. Anyway, we learned in House of Flame and Shadow that the Asteri we talk about Crescent City and Akatar. I feel like I should always say
Also
that, like, Crescent City spoilers ahead. The Asteri infected the water in Midgard with a parasite and created the whole process, the whole drop thing to steal First Light. So before the Asteri did Faye in Midgard settle? Like, is that now that there's an antidote, if there's any left after Ethan and Therian, like, bumbled around and spilled it all, will the Fae there go back to settling?
I would think so because the parasite's no longer hindering them. Because I think with the parasite, the process became much more there's more work put into it. That's how the burst of first light came about. But, like, they should do it more naturally now
But what
without needing
about, like,
that.
what's the equivalent in ACOTAR? Like, the only one I could really think of is when so obviously we didn't know most of the characters, we weren't around for them to either settle or make the drop. That was 400 years ago. But when Feyre was dying under the mountain, could that have been her making the drop? Like her mortal body died and she came back high Fae. Did she make the drop? Did she settle? Because there's also in Crescent City the ordeal and everything that happened under the mountain was traumatic as fuck. Like that could have been her ordeal.
Well, because her making the drop, all of the other high fae and the high lords helped her with that what would be first, like, the burst of energy to
Like,
bring Feyre back.
yes, exactly. So like I was also thinking about Aelin in Mistward, how she, like, goes down to the bottom of her power, and it's actually deeper than she thought, and she didn't technically die, but, like, Selena died,
Well,
and,
like,
like, the
her
goat.
ordeal was going through all of her past trauma
Yeah, and
in that
then,
moment.
like, the ghost of people that she loved helped her kind of like Danica we don't it wasn't actually the ghost probably, but, like, the way Danica anchored Bryce,
Mhm.
it's there are other options for Aelin making the drop that we haven't gotten to yet, but I think it's really interesting because we know now all these worlds are connected. That's not like some theory. Like we know that
It is official.
these Fae are descended from and connected to in every single world. So it's like, why are some making the drop? Why are some settling? Why are some like nothing is happening?
I would say also most likely the differences range in the different worlds, the different atmosphere, the parasite, like, there's
Mhm.
different factors
And, like, maybe
coming into
evolution,
play.
the way that in Throne of Glass, they're very sensitive to iron, and
Mhm,
then in ACOTAR, that was just something they told mortals, but that it doesn't actually really affect them. But they have Feybane.
mhm.
So it's like it's like, I guess, they're thousands of years removed from each other, so evolution and the planet that they're living on would have affected them.
Yeah, I was gonna say the different atmospheres may have like, the process still has to happen or is still similar, but the outside factors for the different atmosphere, the different planets changed how it
Yeah.
comes about. Well, if Aelin does settle into immortality, will she be taking after her aunt and handing out blood oaths to anyone who catches her eye, or was that just for Prince Rowan?
Fenris is trying really hard to be, like, very nonchalant, but he's actually very chalant right now, like, chalant as fuck, because why are you asking? Are you interested in joining Cadre 2.0? He's, like, putting out the feelers of, like, I mean, are you gonna have a cadre?
Poor Fenris, he's trying to find a way to knock her off balance. So first he's like, "Okay, are you gonna be mortal or immortal? Okay,
Mhm.
great. Let's ask about this then. Let's come at Rowan's, like, blood bond." Like,
But I
he's
think
just
he's jealous, like, not jealous,
yeah.
I think that he is what is it called when you like look at people and you're like, I want that. What is that word? Envious, or not envious, but like it makes him sad.
It's literally
the brain cell has
the immortal sins. What is it like when you like are wanting somebody like what somebody else had? Like not.
Is it like jealousy, envious, but not? He's not bitter about it. He's just like looking at it like, man, I wish I had that.
I think he is testing the waters because it is not that he thinks he can have Aelin in any way, but it's something he didn't think that he could have, and now Rowan has it, and he's very interested.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what is that word that we both just drew a blank on, because it's more than just envy and jealousy. It is coveting?
Coveting, maybe.
I'm trying to think of like biblical. He's coveting
thy neighbor.
What Rowan has.
He's coveting Aelin. But not like the idea of having someone, like the way that they look at each other and the way that like the blood oath works.
It's like
Rowan and Aelin.
The mate. It's a worthy queen. It's the power she has, the way that she wields her power.
Yeah, like he has a queen that he wants to fight for, and Fenris fucking hates Maeve.
But even just the way that Aelin is like cunning and sly with her sense of humor, and the way like Fenris is like,
she's gorgeous.
It matches.
Well,
Fenris.
Maeve's hot too, but she's also diabolical.
Not just, like the looks. It's like. But like even Aelin's jokes about sneaking in and like playing games and like fucking with each other, Fenris is like, I'm down to fuck around.
Yeah. He's definitely a fuck around boy.
Poor Fenris. He was certainly interested in training Aelin at Mistward.
Which Fenris argues was just like, oh, I just wanted to get out of Dornell and away from Maeve. But Rowan's like, please, you idiots would still be drunk on that roof in Windland.
They could have had so much fun together.
But he calls him Boyo? Boyo?
Boyo? Did you just say Boyo? Stop.
I was thinking of Bogo. Is that Irish?
Yeah, I was thinking of like, all right, Boyo.
Honestly, like Rowan, I mean, I'm fucking stupid, but Rowan talks like a weirdo in these chapters because later on he says "milady." I was like, what?
We have to further. Rowan is
what's happening?
Multiple centuries old.
Yeah, but he doesn't usually act like it.
Yeah, but like he's trying to put Fenris in his place. Like, all right, Boyo, I trained you. Like, calm down.
I would have been like, Boyo, Boyo.
God. I think that milady was super weird in a weird moment to suddenly like.
All of a sudden, we're in Victorian England. Like, what's happening?
It's not even like because what would you call like a queen? Like Highness, Your Grace.
Yeah.
Milady. Milady? No, she'd be Your Grace. I don't know. It's funny but weird. But back to their blood oath. Aelin's like, I can't make Buzzard do shit. How does Maeve have such a tight grip on y'all's dicks?
And it's all about intention. Aelin and Rowan took the oath to each other with love in their hearts, not a desire to own each other. But we haven't actually said the word love yet. So there are several times where Fenris has to know that he's like making things uncomfortable. We have not said the word love yet.
I think Fenris loves to just like kind of not poke the bear, but like to push a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't said the word love yet or fucked.
It's getting to a ridiculous point by now. And I know that she's talked about how it was not uncomfortable, but like it embarrassed her to write spicy scenes in the beginning. And that's why the more that she writes, like the spicier it's going to get. But it's like, no one is stopping you from going back and writing a novella with all the sex scenes that we missed out on.
I think some of this also for SJM depends on your age. When you're much younger, if you haven't had a lot of sexual experience yet in your mind and thinking about romance, there's so much buildup sometimes that not that doesn't happen like the more you've dated and been out in the world, but like at this point for me, I'm like, are we doing this or not? You know, like
I mean, 16-year-old me writing a book with spice, it would have been like, and then I touched his dick on the outside of his jeans. Oh my God. Be like on the school bus, I touched it.
I felt his jean boner. On the bus.
Jean boner.
God, if I was to talk about things on the bus that happened.
You were popular on the band bus.
I was in marching band, so God, it wasn't maybe American Pie came out when I was in high school.
I did not know band people were so sexually active.
Yeah.
But it turns out that it's true.
Oh God. Well, like there was no instruments going in people's private places like there were in American Pie, but like when they make fun of it in Mean Girls, the sexually active band dorks was very
Well,
That's
I
real.
was wearing my purity ring, and I would have been like,
I was
"Oh
still
my
at church
god,
camp,
have fun
okay?
in hell with your gene boners."
God, the gene boners.
But
The
the whole
truth or dare on the band bus.
what happened to Truth or Dare?
Gene boners. A lot of
I
good
would have been
things.
like, "Truth." I
That's
bet you chose Dare every time.
I did. My first sexual experiences were on the band bus.
That's
I
crazy.
had dirty
Was
sexual
it
experiences.
daylight? Was it, like, Tuesday at
No, it
8
was at
AM?
night for sure, but I had
Oh, I
sexual ex
guess you had like, you went to games
Oh,
and then
yeah, well,
came
we would do
back at night.
competitions on the weekend, so we were on, like, big travel, like, Greyhound buses
Mhm.
sometimes.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was like everybody's
You went
sleeping,
to a
wink, wink.
nicer school than me.
I mean, our band was huge, so, like, hundreds of people trying to get everybody moved would be a
Mhm.
lot, but, yeah, I had, some truth or dare experiences before I had my first kiss.
That's what? Before the first
Yeah, my
kiss?
first boyfriend, my first, like, real boyfriend was upset by that. I was
Was
like,
that the
"Oh."
one that all of y'all dated?
Yes, but
I
me
know
first.
exactly who you're talking
That's the thing
about.
about
I
band
looked
is
him up and he named his kids after Harry Potter.
okay, let's not get weird about it. I knew him before all that, okay? He was a huge dork, but, like, it was band, okay? There's only a few hot people, so everybody has to date each other.
I bet you were the hottest gal on the whole band bus.
Thank thank you. There's multiple buses, so I'll take that for my
On the
bus.
one bus. I can't speak for the other buses.
Thanks. Well, anyway, I forgot, we were talking about Fenris. Where are we?
Oh, the bond. So,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
talking
Maeve.
about why Rowan and Aylin's bond is so different, and it's because Maeve's bond was with the intention of owning them, with submission and obedience, like, for whatever she
That's
wants.
so gross.
It's
Like,
so
poor
gross.
Fenris. And the one, I guess, silver lining to Rowan's oath with Maeve was because of their distant relation, he wasn't forced into her bed, but nobody says anything about Gavriel.
You know, I thought that exact same thing when I was reading that section. I was like, "Fuck."
I mean, like, because Lorcan also was not allowed, but, like, we never discussed
Well,
Gavriel.
yeah, the only one that they have said other than Rowan, that when Rowan is just like, "We're related, I don't want it to happen," but she flat out denies Lorcan, and I still think there's a possibility that it's because she's his mother, like,
Damn.
she seems like the kind of cruel bitch who would laugh at the inside joke of, "This guy doesn't know that he's trying to fuck his own mother." Like,
Yeah.
and it's demi-phase, so it's gonna get murky when we learn more about her, like, how that would be possible, but I
Mhm.
still think that, like, with his brand of power and, like, what he's capable of, I think that he could
Yeah.
be of certain descent.
Yeah. I was thinking it more of her just enjoying the cruelty of how much he loves her, and she's like, "No." Just, like,
Mhm.
enjoying that power play, but
Oh, you know what's
shit.
crazy?
What?
I was watching this TikTok. This is so off. This is gonna be a little bit of a tangent if you
Keep
wanna
it
skip
going.
ahead. Okay, so this guy was talking about this theory with Blair Witch Project, and thinking about high school for some reason has made
Blair
me think
Witch
about that.
Project.
Yeah,
Okay.
that there was never any sort of a witch. There's always been theories of time travel,
Okay.
but that there was never a witch, that it was the 2 guys. The whole thing was a setup to kill her, like, to kill the girl in it. And it's like
Wow.
they were just fucking with her. They were hiding things, they were taking food. They, like, went down because you never actually see the witch.
Yeah.
And that it was actually like it was a documentary, like, they were murdering her.
Holy shit.
Right, and, like, I wanna go back and watch it because it actually I was like, "That makes more sense than it being supernatural."
I mean, it's gonna sound terrible, but I like that twist.
I
It's
do
more
too!
creative and it's more terrifying,
Yeah,
actually.
because I don't know if I think that I've always heard there are, like, all those rumors of, like, things that happen on that set, and then there's some, like, cannibal movie about things that happen there,
Mhm.
but that they filmed a witch scene and it just wasn't very good, or they didn't have the budget, so they didn't include it, but the fact that you never actually see anything supernatural,
Uh-huh.
and it could be just, like, 2 guys who are, "Hey, let's do this," and then all of that was, like, fucking with her and, like, leading up to it.
I mean, well, being out in the woods, it's not that hard, like, once you fall into any kind of panic to, like, escalate that, and
Oh,
if they're
yeah.
cool-headed and she's truly panicking,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be that hard for them to keep that going.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I know that there's sequels and, like, I can't remember if there's, like, I know there's a second one, there might be a third one where they talk about time traveling, but, like, I am, like, choosing to believe. You know, I also heard a theory one time that the Rugrats were dead and that's why they never aged.
Oh, don't talk about y'all need to leave the Rugrats alone.
I think it was
My
yeah, I think it
childhood.
was that they were dead or their parents something I read something and somebody was dead in the Rugrats.
Good
My
lord.
friend who was homeschooled was never allowed to watch it because her mom said that it, like, made you wanna it was like a rebel, like, you would become
Oh,
rebellious.
my mom, we watched it for a long time, and then my mom walked in one time, and I think was her name Angela?
Yeah. Pickles?
Angelica.
Angelica Pickles.
Angelica was being mean to the other babies, and she was like, "I don't want you guys to watch this anymore,
Oh
she's
my
mean."
god. I was watching,
We're like,
like,
"Okay."
X-Files and Ren and Stimpy.
I'm
That
like,
explains me.
"Oh, man." My childhood was interesting
I
in a
bet you watched a lot
conservative
of
way.
PBS.
No, we had Disney, but, like, every summer, my dad would block MTV and
Oh, you
HBO.
used to try to
You had
watch,
to,
like,
like, call and have things
Undressed.
blocked. God, Undressed.
Oh
That
my
was, like, a
god.
sexual awakening. That was when I was in marching
That
band.
was a sexual
Did
awakening, the
I need
way that,
help with
like,
that?
my what is it? The side of the couch arm could probably press charges against me
Who
from me watching Undressed.
I think that was actually referenced also in was it Ted Lasso? I'm trying to remember somebody talked about, like, humping the arm of the
Yeah, that's
couch.
like a universal that and your pillow, that's like a universal experience, it's gotta be.
We've gone so off the rails.
But yeah,
Um,
back to the bond
yeah, this
between
bond,
Rowan and Aelin.
yeah, that theirs seems a lot healthier. No wonder Fenris is like, "If I had to be bonded, at least it would be just somebody that showed respect to
It's
me."
like he's looking at it with whimsy. I'm not thinking of the word, but
Aelin asks if they could break the bond, but even if they tried, the magic that binds them to her would kill them in the process. They ask why she needs to know.
and Fenris is like, "Are you interested?"
But Aelin is really just concerned what they'll do if Maeve somehow claims ownership over our favorite power bottom through his father.
And she's wondering what will happen if Fenris and Gavriel helping her takes them into direct conflict with Maeve's fleet and Eelway. So like, you guys are on my side right now, but what if it's like us versus Maeve? What happens then?
Yikes. They don't answer, but the bigger concern is if Maeve is sailing to join Erewhon.
Well, and again, that would mean that they would Fenris and Gavriel and Rowan and Aelin and Aedian would end up on opposite sides of the war, which would be so I feel so sorry for Gavriel in all these chapters. Like, I feel sorry for Aedian, but I feel sorry for Gavriel too, because he is just like, this is so much information to take.
I know. And it's like, I want to be mad at Adian for how he's treating Gabrielle because Gabrielle didn't even know. But Gabrielle also hasn't seemed to ever question his
Mhm.
loyalty to Maeve, you know? And when it cost him Adian's mother, he just let her go.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't fight for her
I
either, which is
understand.
disappointing.
No, I understand Aedian's, like, I understand both sides. Like, Gavriel makes me sad, but then Aedian is entitled to his anger
Yeah.
because he has just like, I mean, first of all, Aedian is in his 20s. Like, I saw someone online being like, people who judge Tamlin, but then like Aedian. I'm like, Tamlin is hundreds of years older and a full-blooded Fae and
Yeah.
High Lord, and you're gonna compare him to like what like Tamlin hasn't gone through anything like what
But
Aedian has
also,
gone
Adian,
through.
for only being in his 20s, has been through a shit ton of horrible things
Everyone died.
and still protected his people as he's being, like, mistreated and taken advantage of. So, like, this is not the same. These aren't the same. You can't compare these 2.
Exactly. And well, and so the issue is, okay, it would suck to have to be on opposite sides of these two Fey males because like they're strong and they're powerful and we need them. But also like Rowan is all about like I'm beyond the cadre, like I don't want that anymore. But these are still his friends. Like he still cares about these people, these Fey males.
Oh, yeah.
And he even like he slips up at one point and says our instead of like your.
Well, even if he doesn't use the word friends to describe them, like, he doesn't know how to bring them together, they're basically like brothers. He talks about when he's discussing this with Adian previously, how they'll run, um I don't know, but what you would call them, their court, but
Mhm.
he's like, the brotherhood, the bond is so much and so deep, and they had it for so long, like
The Court of Dreamers or whatever.
yeah, it just, like, there's no way he could go against them, especially if they don't want to go against like, how do you kill
Mhm.
somebody that's being forced into something they don't wanna do, you
Yeah.
know? Like
Yeah, exactly. They're not fighting for Maeve because they, like, believe in whatever her cause is.
yeah, it would just be horrible on a lot of
And
levels.
I mean, if once you've touched tips with someone, you don't wanna have to kill them.
Yeah, absolutely would hate that. Gavriel wonders if Maeve is going to take Morath's fleet out to prove that she's on Aelin's side, which Aelin thinks would be too risky.
She's thinking it's too risky of, like, she wouldn't wanna like, have that many people die just to prove a point, but Maeve does not give a shit about her soldiers or anyone.
Well, Maeve may want to have some kind of bond with Aelin, whether it's really toxic or not, but I don't think that she's willing to like make big sacrifices to get to that point. I don't think she cares that much.
Yeah.
Aelin asks Fenris and Gavriel if Maeve gave them an order to take the keys and Athryl's ring from Lorcan or just to kill him.
If she gave us the order to take everything, will you kill us, Heir of Fire? I'm sorry. Fenris could spit in my fucking mouth. Like, he says, he's bracing his hands on the bed and says, "Will you kill us, Heir of Fire?" I'm sorry. That is so sexy.
I love Fenris. Like,
There's something about the bracing, like any book that I read where they brace their hands either on the wall on like both sides of your head or on a bed or something. There's just, it's like predatory.
uh-huh.
I love it.
But it's also his general tone and the way that he tries to act very relaxed and unconcerned that like, God, he's so sexy.
You just know he fucks.
Oh my God.
Because he has
fuck.
so much repressed like anger and just about like his situation.
Well, just and his playfulness also. All of that
It would be fun and it would be sexy.
It would be so dirty. That would be such a dirty fuck. As I'm distracted. Gavin. This is supposed to be a serious scene and we keep talking about the dirtiest thing. My point is made.
This is like earlier we were trying to remember if in the joining in Blood and Ash, if there's penetration between the two guys, which JLA apparently came out and said that there was. But it's very like when you read the scene in a War, is it War of Two Queens? It's like a tornado or like a mess of tangle of limbs or whatever. So you're like, what happened? She apparently said that there was penetration, that Kieran was penetrated.
We were trying to read back through this scene.
Because we were like, that would have been on our list of things we want to see.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't remember if they had already had like a male moment between Kieran and Kaz. So we were going to list them as like people that should have been gay or bi. And then we were like, wait, did it already happen? And we forgot.
And apparently it did. And it was just not super obvious.
Well, we were trying to deep dive it together before we were on air.
Together.
Well, because we were both like reading over it, and I was like, "This is
then you guys
hot and heavy
like,
and dirty,
sucked in." And I was like, "Are you still reading?" And you're like, "I need to finish this."
And I didn't get a chance to because it's several pages long, so we'll have to stay tuned. We'll have to go back over that later.
Chapter 44 of A War of Two Queens, if you're interested. The joining.
Yeah, but so that set a dirty tone for not a dirty scene, but here we are.
I mean, you go from the band bus to this.
Gavriel reveals Rolf has new weapons developed by alchemists in the southern continent called fire lances. They don't have a lot of details, just that even when wielded by one man, they'll be devastating.
Which is great news, like, as long as they end up on the right side, because so many magic wielders are dead or they're new to their return gifts, and with these weapons, Aelin wouldn't be the only fire wielder on the battlefield if Rolf is on her side.
Big if.
Big if.
On the way back to their room, Rowan confirms what Fenris was saying earlier, that he knew from the moment she emerged from the Vogue darkness that even if Maeve had kept him enslaved, he'd have fought for her every day. He would have fought for the rest of his life.
But God forbid they say it with their bottom mouths. It's almost ridiculous at this point that they're sleeping in the same bed. She sometimes just like sleeps topless or nude. And
I mean, why do we not do things against the chimney or whatever it was when they're outside? They're on the roof. Like, how sexy.
Know.
Let's just fucking do it. I don't understand the holdup, you know?
I don't either. It doesn't, like, I know that this is, I mean, I don't want to say YA because it still has very adult themes, like, especially the trauma is not YA at all. But it even in like a YA series, there should have by now been like a cutaway fade to black scene, because you're telling me 100-year-old Fae male has someone that he cares this much about, sleeping in the same bed with them, life or death situations, and he's not tried to do anything.
I don't care how tired you guys are at night. He's got morning wood. There are boners grinding up against her at some point. Like, something had to have, even like just jack him off.
Jack him off.
What did you say one episode? That he's up to his eyeballs and
he's up to his eyeballs and cum.
Like, it's just, come on. And that's very high school. People were jacking off in high school. Like, you guys could have done that. Come on.
Just a dry jack off in high school. Over the jeans.
Adian hears Aelin and Rowan returning to the inn.
And he's like, great, another super secret side quest that I'm not part of. And I'm a full-grown man sleeping on a cot. The way that they talk about, like, okay, Adian is sleeping on a cot. He is nervous about meeting his dad. He's not being invited to side quests. I don't know why, but there's something so funny to me about Dorian and Adian being on little cots.
Why are they all in one room?
Well, so I
I know they're
guess
probably conserving their
I
funds,
thought
but,
that
like
too, and it seems like Aelin and Rowan are in another room, and I guess Lysandra got the bed, and then Dorian and Adian are just, like, on tiny little cots.
I know, but, like, just the fact that they're all 3 of them are in a room together, and I guess again, I guess they're just trying to save what money they have, because 'cause I'm like, "Why are you guys
Well,
all in there
don't stay in the
together?"
nicest inn.
Yeah, seriously. Lysandra returned hours earlier, swaying on her feet even before she shifted back into her usual body.
Naked.
So naked.
What's interesting to me is that when Fae like Rowan shift, their clothes shift with them, but Lysandra's don't seem to. Like when Aelin asked Rowan where his clothes and weapons go when he shifts, he really didn't know. He's just like, they go somewhere, they're in between. And I don't know if Lysandra is choosing to be naked because she doesn't give a shit and she's kind of leaning into her animalistic side, or if that's a difference between Fae and shapeshifters.
Maybe it's a difference between Fae and shapeshifters because as you say that, like, in later books, she still will shift and she'll be naked.
Yeah. But then
Yeah.
Rowan is just fully clothed with all of his weapons.
Interesting.
And in Twilight, they just had little like backpacks that they put on their feet.
Twilight made sense. They literally would burst through their clothes and
Yeah.
shred them. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
I just always thought it was so cute that there was like these giant wolves that were super scary, but it was like, is that a little backpack?
Adian puts his hand on her back as she braces her arms on her knees and fights dizziness.
She's leaning forward, and I have this rule about never folding while I'm naked.
Well, she's got a perfect body, so I'm
She
sure it's
does,
fine.
but still, that's not a good angle.
No.
And he's like rubbing her back, and not in a sexual way, but just in like a comforting way. And Lysandra stiffens at first, but after a while, she lets out a sound that might have been a purr. Then she falls into the kind of deep sleep that Aelin and Rowan go into to let their magic recover, and Adian carries her and her new smaller breasts to the bed. I also don't want to be carried naked. That's not a good angle. Like, can you imagine like you're folded up this way?
Mhm.
And, like, they can just look down and it's like that little pocket there. Ugh.
I also think it's just interesting in that scene that she's like, "I'm too hot to put clothes on." You guys have seen naked people before, like, whatever. Yeah, but we haven't seen you naked.
Mhm.
So these 2 beautiful men are in this room,
You
and
know
you're just gonna
Dorian
leave
is,
it
like,
all hanging
fake
out?
snoring, but, like, with one eye open, like, "What's
Like,
about to happen?"
Dorian the king womanizer, like, he is absolutely looking at you, like, whether you want it I don't know, like
This could have been a very good hotel room, like, a good scene.
well, and I know that Lysandra's not ready for all that, and I just the fact that she's like, "It's just a body," or like, "You guys have seen naked
Mhm.
people before." I'm like, "Yeah, but
Well, I
it's
guess that
you."
she is just becoming very detached from her human body the more she shifts. It's like she is now kind of seeing herself as an animal.
Well, and honestly, the control she didn't have over her human body in the past and the way
Mhm.
it was used, I get that, like, that
Yeah.
separation. I just thought it was interesting, that little
Mhm.
tidbit that I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
but I'll try not to look like, okay."
I know Aiden is like, "Alright, I'm gonna cover you up."
I think that's
Which is
very
really nice.
that's very sweet, very big of him that he was really
Yeah,
trying to take care of her and not
and he's
like,
big.
"Okay, that's all I'm
You know
saying."
he is.
You know he is. Giving up on his own sleep after tossing and turning all night, Adian gets ready to meet his
And
father.
he's so nervous that he's like, "Should I brush my hair? No, I'm not gonna brush
Oh.
my hair. That's stupid. I'll look like a dork." When Lysandra sees him, but he does all that about brushing his hair, and then he puts on his dirty travel clothes.
These are his clothes, that's what he's got.
But she busts into Aelin and Rowan's room and grabs a fit from Prince Rowan's closet. And as they're having a little makeover montage, Dorian's pulling a pillow over his eyes because he's trying to sleep. And I just love little moments like that, like little, like humanizing moments.
It is funny that they mentioned that Dorian was, like, already crashed out when they get in the night before,
Mhm.
and he still crashed out, like, he's still, like, the little lordling
Yeah.
sleeping in.
Like I haven't had my beauty sleep.
Yeah, you guys are up way too early. Aiding and Lysandra walk to Rolf's tavern where Gavriel and Fenris are having breakfast, and Gavriel tells his son that he looks so much like her. How sad. Adian knows that he doesn't mean Aelin, he means his mother.
It's very triggering. Like Adian's mother wasted away from a curable sickness, and it was all to keep Adian off of Gavriel and by extension Maeve's radar because it was never like, oh, we gotta hide him from Gabriel because he's a bad guy. It was always back to Maeve. But this isn't something that Adian planned to say. Like he brushed his hair, he cared about this, but there's so much repressed anger and resentment, and he's been pushing it down for so long, and he's never really had an outlet for it because there was no one to get angry with about this. And like seeing his father, everything just kind of like boils over.
Well, like, once he knows who his father is, and he knows why his mom had to die was because of
Exactly.
keeping him away from
So
Maeve,
like
like
it is your fault. It's not, it's like indirectly your fault, but if I have to find someone to blame, it's gonna be you.
and I'm so sad for Gavriel in this
I
scene
know.
because, like, Gavriel, I think, would have done everything he could to protect Adian if he had known, but again, his knowing would have gotten back to Maeve, and
Right.
then where would they be? But at the same time, when Adian's mom walked away, Gavriel didn't fight to keep her
Mhm.
there or check back on her,
Right.
anything. It's just it's all the whole scene is very sad. Like, Adian needed this moment, and he deserved this moment.
He did.
Gavriel needs to feel bad for what his
Yeah.
Adian's mom
Well,
went
he wasn't
through.
around, like, I don't kn like, Gavriel just learned about Adian, so, like, he doesn't have a lot of the backstory, but it's like, you don't know how bad it was for me.
Yeah, or
Like,
for her.
it wasn't just, I didn't know who my father was. Who knows who their father is, you know? But it
Um,
was so much more than that.
well, and I mean, Gavriel respected the wishes of Adian's mother, and that's, commendable. Thank you for respecting her wishes, but
He's
y
almost too, like, like, he's too, like, a rule
honorable.
follower,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, it just none of this had to have happened to her so horrifically if Maeve wasn't in the picture, if you weren't loyal to Maeve,
Yeah.
All of
Yeah,
it goes back to
ultimately,
Maeve.
it's all Maeve, but he's an extension of her.
Gosh, poor Adian. He goes from nervousness to wishing that Aelin was here so she could burn Gavriel to
He gets
ashes,
mad.
to blaming his father for everything and threatening to slit his throat. Like, whoa. Gavriel doesn't know what to say.
Well, his name wasn't the move because when Gabriel says Adian, he snaps back that he doesn't want anything from him unless you plan to help, which I'm not going to object to because objectively we do need you. Beyond that, I don't want anything from you. It's
His
like this
eyes,
went south so quickly.
yeah. I
And
mean,
you know, Lysandra's like,
I mean, like, poor Gabriel, he's also like, I can't just say I'm sorry. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure he
Adian's
also
not ready to hear it.
was devastated to hear that that happened to Adian's mother because he loved Adian's mother.
Well, and it would be hard for Fenris to, like, you know how honorable and how good of a guy Gabriel is, but you obviously you can't, like, interject yourself, but it would be hard, like, if someone came up to you and they were, like, unloading on you, like, you would want to stick up for your friend, but
Yeah, like, even if I was in the wrong, it's still hard to see somebody, like,
yeah.
especially because Adian has a moment where he thinks that he could potentially be kicking a man who's already down or a
Mhm.
male who's already down. So,
But it's
like,
like he just can't stop himself.
I mean, he has a right to be heard. So
Mhm.
it's just a hard situation. His eyes filled with grief, Gavriel says that he's sorry, but Adian says that he's not the one he needs to apologize to. Oh, and go to hell. And then he
God,
leaves the
it's
tavern.
they're both hurt, like, hurt people.
God, if Gavriel could apologize to Adian's mother, I'm sure he would. He
Yeah.
had no idea things went
Well,
this
yeah, and,
way.
like, Gabriel's ambushed by like, he didn't even know he had a son, and then he was ambushed by his son because this was not a planned meeting, and they just busted in the tavern. They're doing all this over breakfast,
Mhm.
but it's again, Adian's gone through so much, and he's focusing all of it on Gabriel because he's never had an outlet. Like, Adian's whole life is he's had to have this mask, and he's had to push down all of his anger and, like, all of his trauma and everything, and it's like, "Oh, now I have this outlet. I have someone to direct it to."
Especially now that he knows the why of it.
Yeah.
It can't do anything but make you angry. Instead of returning to the ocean rose, Adian walks into the jungle and onto a rock overlooking the island, Lysandra a silent support beside him.
He's like, "That was crazy," right? Like, even I think he surprised himself, but when he says, even if right now Gabriel seems desperate to know him, he'll change his mind when he gets to know Adian. Lysandra's like, "Who exactly do you think you are? Aderlin's whore? You're the general." Because he's mad at his dad about what happened to his mother, but then it's like, "I'm gonna push you away before you can push me away. Because once you figure out that your son is Aderlin's whore, you're not gonna want me."
Oh.
But then there is a line that I highlighted because so Lysandra is telling him, "You're the general who held his kingdom together, who saved his people when they were forgotten even by their own queen. That's the man I know. Was that a little bit of an
That was
Aelin
a dig
dig?
at Aelin.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, I know that I guess she means during her time with Arabin.
Yeah. I mean, like, Lysandra's ride or die for
Mhm.
Aelin, but
But she was there.
and there's things that Aelin did that we'll learn as we go along that she was still thinking of Terrasen, but she wasn't ready to accept who she was. But,
Mhm.
Lysandra saw her during that time.
Yeah.
She's like, maybe it was a mask she was wearing, but she was still a selfish bitch.
She
Some of
was
that.
throwing knives at my head.
Yeah. They're, throwing the fact that I was forced to be, quote, a whore in my face like it was a choice I made on purpose.
Lysandra is so much bigger than me as a person because I'd be holding on to all that shit. No matter if it was like, oh, actually, I'm a secret queen or princess and this is all the shit that happened to me and it was terrible. I'd be like, that sucks. You were still a fucking bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
Well, you knew
I
everything that
relate
was happening
more
to
to
me.
Adian and his treatment of Dorian because it takes me a while to get over shit and I'm not like in all the stuff they're in like high stakes
Well, I
and I
mean,
can't get over stuff.
Dorian to Adian wasn't even nearly as cruel as Aelin was to Lysandra.
Right.
And I know that they've
He
set
was
this.
more like this fucking guy.
He was just like a hot mess all over
Yeah.
there. And I know that they've set that aside. Like, we're not trying to dig up their drama or anything like that. It just, these moments, Lysandra didn't forget.
Yeah. People don't forget.
And I appreciate that. Give the word and I'll transform into the face of their nightmares.
When Adian asks what creature that is, she cryptically answers that she's been working on something.
Aelin and Rowan are walking into the sea dragon.
And she's like, fuck. So Aelin, we're in Aelin's POV. And she's like, man, I wish I had time to get dick down. Because they were going to last night. She took an everything shower, I'm sure. And
as quick as she could.
Yeah, she came out of the bath and naked. She's naked out of the bath. And he's just like buzzard sleeping.
And I know that she knows he's tired because I'm like, what if we just stroked him awake? But no.
Stroked him awake.
She was like, he needs his rest. How sweet.
This fucking bird.
Rowan had begun the process of waking the still naked Aelin up right before Lysandra barged in to raid the closet.
So, a very sexually frustrated Aelin and Rowan are walking into this tap room to a wide-eyed Gabriel and Fenris and a pissed-off Rolf. But when Fenris takes in, like, Rowan's, like, the aura that he's giving off, he warns Rolf, like, don't fuck with this. Like you were saying, this bird is up to his eyeballs in cum. Don't fuck with him today.
Weird visual. Sorry, I didn't. My mind just went there. Sorry. Aelin sees a map spread on the table and notes silver figurines camped across the continent, an impenetrable line from the Farian Gap to the mouth of the Avery. Plus, additional figures in the Gulf of Oro, Melisande, Finharrow, and near Eoway's northern border.
According to the latest reports, Morath's armies have moved into position to strike Eoway. And this is a kingdom with no standing army and a kingdom Aelin made a blood oath to free in honor of its princess, Nehemia.
And a kingdom it takes about 3 weeks to get to from Morath.
Which timeline-wise means Erewhon put this into motion after Aelin basically played in his face in Ilium.
It also means that Erewhon now holds everything south of the Avery. Everything except this archipelago.
You're so like whenever you say that word, I'm so impressed.
What, archipelago?
Yeah, say it again.
I mean, with how many other things I fall all over that are basic words.
It just sounds so smart.
This archipelago, and even here he has a foothold in the dead end.
As Aelin is staring at the map. So I don't know if I don't know if that was explained very well. It's obvious that this is a move just to fuck with Aelin.
Yeah, it
like
doesn't
you
do
fuck
anything
with me, I'll fuck with you.
It doesn't aid their position or give them any kind of advantage by coming for Eoway because Eoway is down at the bottom,
right,
out of the way of everything.
Like this is personal.
Yeah.
And as Aelin is staring at the map at the line of figurines cutting off Terrasen, her gaze snags on a name along the western coast, Briarcliff. And she's reminded of the life debt she's owed by Ansel and by the silent assassins in the Red Desert because she's just out here collecting life debts, really.
Yeah, it's interesting that she does have quite a few, actually. Quick refresh on Ansel of Briarcliff and the Silent Assassins. After Selena and Sam freed the slaves in Skulls Bay, Arabin sent Selena to train with the Mute Master and Silent Assassins in the Red Desert.
And on the way there is when she stopped in Inish and met Irene.
She was very busy on
She
this
was
trip.
very like, it's you know
She did a
what pisses
lot.
me off sometimes when I see, like, super successful people and I look up their age and they're younger than me, I'm like, "Fuck." That's how I feel about this. I haven't done anything with my life. It's
It's
fine.
okay.
I'm
You're
fine. I
doing
have
great.
a podcast.
Yeah, so fuck that.
Honestly, me like, us having a podcast is really just proof that podcast equipment has become too cheap. It's too accessible these days.
Apparently anybody can have a podcast. While there, Aelin became friends with Ansel of Briarcliff, who ended up betraying the assassins and letting their enemies into the fortress. Aelin stopped Ansel from killing the Mute Master. Then, as Ansel was fleeing the fortress, Aelin gave her an extra minute before she shot an arrow at her.
And then we heard the name again in Queen of Shadows when Aelin used Ansel's name in the fighting pits.
In the present, Aelin tells Rolf he's going to give her his armada and the fire lances that Gavriel and Fenris told her about.
She's done playing.
And he is going to pay the debt owed to her bloodline by the Mycenians.
Because Rolf is the heir of the Mycenian people, the ones whose stronghold was in Ilium until they refused to come to Terrasen's aid in a war 300 years ago. So the heir of fire has come to claim the debt owed by the heir of the Mycenians. And it's really thanks to Arabin. And he was spying on all of his business partners. So he's the one who put it together. I mean, there was also all of that, like, not very subtle branding on Rolf's part with the sea dragons.
But you know what also, like, Arabin was very, like, he told Lysandra a lot. For somebody that he had no respect for, he literally thought of her as a possession. He told her a lot.
He underestimated her so much that she would, like, it was like, oh, it doesn't matter if I tell her anything. What's she gonna do?
I mean, that's impressive for
She's
Lysandra.
gonna stab you.
She kept that going for so long, too. That would have been so difficult.
There was this serial killer, and I was watching this documentary, and he was really, really dumb.
Okay.
Like, very, very dumb.
Okay.
And so every time he would confess to a murder, he would get a strawberry milkshake. He spelled it like milkshake. And so they were like, "Did you kill this woman?" And he was like, "Yes, strawberry milkshake, please."
Oh, I've seen that documentary.
What was it? He was like the highway killer or something, but they're having him write out his crimes, and he always says stabe, like he spells it like stabe. I stabbed him.
Well, eventually he confessed to a bunch of murders he didn't commit.
Yes,
because he
wanted the strawberry milkshakes.
His milkshake.
But whenever I think stab, I think stabe.
Okay. Aelin allows her magic to rise to the surface and then sends it rippling out of her.
Milady has to release bits of her power daily. Rowan, what's going on with you?
It is so weird, to be honest, in Milady part.
But you also know Dorian was probably just knocked off of the toilet by this wave of power. Like, what the fuck? But Rolf is probably also like, how long have you been here and you haven't done this once? Like, I'm not fucking stupid.
I mean, she does it, but it's also kind of subtle. So, like, maybe he wasn't paying attention before?
Is it subtle because the bells start ringing? It's that level of, like,
yeah, but if it
wave.
had been that intense inside, you would have had broken glasses and tables pushed over.
That's true.
I don't know.
It must have been like a sound wave.
There must have been something. Aiden and Lysandra arrive, the former only giving Gavriel a glance, and the latter standing at the window monitoring the bay. Then Dorian, summoned by Aelin's power, strolls in.
Gang's all here, so we thank you for your hospitality, but we really must be going. I mean, Sam and I destroyed your city all by ourselves, so do we even really need you? Now you're just like, she's just insulting him.
I mean, because honestly, it's like, you're not going to help me? Fine. I don't need you anyway. Rolf asking if Sam died still pining after her sends Rowan over the edge.
That is low.
And I also love that Rowan's like, no, you're not doing this. And
well,
Rowan
we know that this bird is so stressed out.
Yeah, but he also has that respect for Sam.
Yeah.
And the way Sam took care of Aelin or Selena. Rowan slams Rolf's face into the table, and then the Pirate Lord's body goes rigid.
Probably because he's feeling like the permanent boner that Rowan has. And he's like, what the fuck?
There's a lot happening here. Turning his hands over, Rolf and Rowan watch as black spreads across his fingers to his palms.
Aelin's like, sucks to suck, bye! And as they're making plans to escape, because apparently Lysandra was a shark last night and pulled a boat over, Rolf storms out and accuses Aelin of summoning the Valkyr with that blast of magic.
But she's like, none of this is my problem if we aren't allies.
Even Dorian's a little taken aback at the idea of abandoning the people on this island, but they're just gonna follow her lead because, like, she's telling them, "This isn't our fight."
I mean, I think Fenris even is like, okay."
Okay?
But also, "our" now includes Fenris and Gavriel.
And I mean, there are a lot of reasons, like, they made the deal, but it Gavriel would do anything just to stay near his son, which makes me
So
sad.
sad. Rolf is shocked, not only by Aelin summoning the Vogue, but also this is a girl who put everything on the line to save 200 slaves.
It's
And now
off-brand.
she's leaving this island and its people to die by the Vogue?
Rolf's little fit is interrupted. He has so many little fits because he's just Rolf makes me laugh because I love like pure like he fucking hates Aelin. And everything she does, he's like, God, I fucking hate her.
She strong arms into
Yeah.
everything.
But one of his men run up and they report that there are 8 warships with at least 100 soldiers on each and 2 sea wyverns on the way. And that's all the sea wyverns they can see.
Uh-oh. With no other choice, Rolf sets his terms. He wants to be an admiral, and he wants the entire archipelago and Ilium.
And he wants some respect on his name, put Lord in front of it as it was before his ancestor's name. He's clearly been thinking about this.
Yeah.
In exchange, Aelin says that he can keep whatever gold and treasure is on board every Morath ship that he sacks, but weapons go to the front, which feels like a very like classic what is it,
Privateer.
privateer
Yeah.
deal.
She'll also give him land, but no royal titles beyond Lord of Ilium and King of the Archipelago for him and any offspring that he has.
And Dorian keeps piping up like, "Me too. I will also be doing these things."
Dorian's
So
learning
sweet. I
so
will
much.
also call you king of the pirates.
Rolf will give Aelin his fleet if she saves the island, but he can't guarantee the Mycenaeans will rise. Only a small number live here, and they won't stir without proper motivation.
The ancient prophecy says the Mycenaeans will only return when the sea dragons do, which isn't going to happen, Rolf points out, but Aelin simply says, leave that to her. You know, there are actually sea dragons in A Song of Ice and Fire because there's like this legend with the Ironborn that Naga, Nagga, was the first. Like she was so big that she ate krakens and leviathans.
I would see that.
Like,
I would
that's how
pay to
big
see
she
that.
is. And I
Oh.
have to imagine SJM was inspired by the same word. Like, hers has one less G, Naga, but it's like in Hindu, I guess, mythology, they're half cobra, half human.
Ooh.
And just we're gonna talk about spiders later, and I'm told you I'm like working my way back through A Song of Ice and Fire. The others, aka the White Walkers, rode in on giant ice spiders.
Ooh, that creeps me out. I hate
Isn't
spiders.
and there's allegedly ice dragons that we've never actually seen because everything that happened, like with the dragon going like dying and then being taken by the white, like none of that actually happened. But allegedly there are ice dragons.
God, I wish we could see some of
I think
that
there's one buried in Winterfell.
in House of the Dragon. Oh, I bet there are.
Mm-hmm.
God, that would be so cool.
Because they talk about like someone being, I don't know if it's gonna be that. So Jon Snow is dead. And I don't know if he's going to be buried in the Winterfell in the crypts, and then he's going to come up, and that's actually because they talk about a dragon rising from there, and he's the Targaryen dragon that's going to rise, or if it's going to be a literal ice dragon that like an egg has been there.
Ooh.
We'll probably never know. We'll never know what's going to happen in ACOTAR. We will never know what's going to happen in the next The Song of Ice and Fire book.
Like, that stuff gets me so excited. That sounds
It's
so
like the
cool.
lore is so good. I was even thinking about like George R.R. Martin grew up with turtles. Like that was the pets that he was allowed to have. So he loves turtles. So there's like this whole thing with before the Doom of Valyria, there was this war between the Valyrians and these people who had like sacred turtles that were giant turtles. And it happened a long time, like a long time ago, obviously, if it was before the Doom of Valyria. And then you think that it's just a myth. But then when Tyrion is in Essos, he sees a giant turtle and he's like, he just kind of laughs. He's like, you're fucking kidding me. And it's like, I love stuff like that world is so good.
Gosh, wish we could see more of it. I can't wait.
I know.
For the
There's
next
so many
season.
things that I wish could have been in the TV show.
There's so much. There's no way they could cram it all in, but like it could be so cool.
Well, and we're only getting 8 episodes for the next season of House of the Dragon, and they've already said that one of them's going to be a conceptual episode, so it's not going to push the story forward. It's probably going to be like, my guess would be it's going to follow one of the like small folk or something, like see how they're affected. And I'm like, so we're getting 7 episodes? It's just, yeah.
Hmm.
At least they're filming, at least it's actually happening, but still.
Yeah. Switching to Dorian's POV, we learn he did, in fact, feel Aylin's blast of magic as the Vogue undoubtedly did.
And there's no mistaking who that fire magic belonged to. They knew exactly who she was, and she knew exactly what she was doing. And Dorian is seeing a part of Aelin that I don't know if he has before. Like, Aelin is brilliant. She's insane. She's a liar, but it works. And Dorian is thinking, like, maybe I could do with a little more wickedness and insanity too. Because this war is not going to be won by manners, by like it's not gonna be won by the things that Dorian learned in, like, Little Prince school, you know? Like, how
Aw.
to eat like a dainty lady, and that's why it pisses me off later when we talk about Tower of Dawn. There's this part where Irene talks about, like, "I'm not very good at court intrigue," and Chaol's like, "Oh, that's refreshing." And it's like, sorry the people who are good at that kind of stuff are actually gonna win this war for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that he's like, "No, I like that. I like that you're not, like, sneaky or whatever."
I think that comes from also Kale just couldn't read Aelin.
Yeah.
He thought he could, but he really couldn't. But even Dorian may have seen Aelin be a little bit of a liar or like a manipulator or do certain things, but it's the fact that to get things done, she's willing to gamble with so many people's lives.
Yeah.
Like it is risky and it's terrifying, but like
She has
this
to do it.
this is war. There's much bigger things on the line
Mhm.
here, which I think has a moment where Dorian's like, "You're right. I need to step up and like
I'm gonna have to really
make some things
become a
happen."
king.
Aelin orders Rowan, Lysandra, Fenris, and Gavriel on Rolf's ship with her. Aedion will take the northern watchtower and its harpoon. Women, children, and Dorian take shelter.
Well, between Dorian and Aelin, she's like, one of us has to survive. But Dorian wants to fight, and Dorian is fucking powerful. He's also been training with Rowan. So Aelin hands him Damaris, the sword of his ancestor, Gavin Haviliard, and tells him to take the southern watchtower. So Dorian gets a job.
Yay, Dorian. Good job. She then orders Rolf to gather all of the iron chains on the island and everyone takes their
And
positions.
this is one of those times where it's like, overall, I love the tandem read, but it is so hard to switch over as they're getting ready for this battle. But then next week, it's all Empire of Storms, at least.
We get to at least see everything that happens. In Tower of Dawn, chapter 31, Nezrin has just learned that Stygian spiders aren't just myths.
Something Falcon, the merchant who's been staying at the Eyrie, knows very well. Nearly 3 years ago, he traded 20 years of his life for 100 yards of spider silk.
So even though he looks nearly 50, he's actually only 27.
Can I just say, it it sucks that the deal they took the 20 years from his prime, like not at the end. But a deal's a deal. Like, does it get on your nerves how much he's trying to go back on this deal? When you made this deal, you sought out these spiders and said, I will trade you this for this. And now you're unhappy about it.
I mean, yes and no, like nothing's ever permanent. And I could see being like, cool, it'll be whatever and not care. But then after a year or two, you're like, that was so fucking stupid. I can't believe I did
Like,
that.
that's your fault. You made, I don't know, like the spiders here in the southern continent are straight up evil. But compared, the Stygian spiders actually don't seem that bad. Like, they're stuck in this world and they're just kind of like small business owners, entrepreneurs, and they're trying to make it work.
Yeah, I think
You
it's
came to us and sought out a deal and we made the deal and now you're going to try to fucking kill me?
yeah. I mean, they're not great by any means, but they're also like they've spent enough time like bartering with humans,
Mhm.
humanity. Like they've spent more time around them
Yeah.
than the ones down here in the South. But also like I wouldn't hold it against Falcon. I just don't feel bad for
For some
you.
reason, yeah, I don't feel bad for you. That's what it is. It kind of pisses me off.
Like, wow, like that
Just why
sucks.
why are you enjoying being rich? Like, you can be rich and have fun in your 50s.
I mean, is he truly rich? Because being an Otterlin feels very limited too.
He
Never
should
know.
be. That, like, everyone who says, "Oh, he got whatever 10 yards or whatever," that's like a king's.
Like 100 yards. He got something
Yeah,
insane.
that everyone's like, "Oh, that would like for the rest every generation you ever have will be set for
I wonder
life."
if he
Like,
actually sold it all.
I don't know.
That's something he never really says. But
Maybe he's a
also,
shitty merchant.
he hasn't been home in 3 years. So, like, whenever he made this deal, like, he's been out and about. Falcon's deal was with the northern Stygian spiders, the more civilized spiders who live in the Rune Mountains, compared to the Karenqui who dwell in the Doggle Fells of the southern continent.
Which is where the Hearth Mother has been, and she's confirmed their webs have grown, and they are number one on the list of suspects. There's rook eggs have been disappearing from nest, and they think that the spiders are stealing them.
Sorry to pick another tangent, but Doggle Fell, isn't that something similar to The Hobbit? Or is it Lord of
I
the
was
Rings?
thinking about that. It's the ghoul, the Gul part is reminding me of something, and I think it might be the Naza what is
Not
it?
the Nazgul, but, like because, like, there's a part where, the necromancer has come back,
Mhm.
and I could have sworn, like, the witch kings or whatever, they were buried somewhere like Doggle something. It just
Mhm.
sounded too familiar. Falcon is at the Eyrie to learn what the Hearth Mother knows of the spiders so that he can hopefully kill the one he made the deal with and reclaim his years.
He's also there because he was told only a great warrior can slay the spider, and does that sound familiar?
Mhm.
While in the Red Desert 2 years ago, Selena met a merchant who was selling spider silk. He told her about his trade and how, when he sought out a way to reverse it, a witch told him only the death of the spider who consumed his 20 years would return them, and only a great warrior can slay a Stygian spider. The greatest warrior in the land, though perhaps an assassin from the north might do. And I think that it's pretty obvious at this point, but I guess we'll wait until we get an official reveal to like talk about that
Hul-
connection.
Hulin wants Sartak, Nezrin, and Falcon to find the Rook hatchlings next time they're taken. They have to wait for evidence before starting a full-blown war with the spiders.
Well, there have apparently already been wars between the Rooks and the Spiders, and like that rivalry goes back. And it's like, if you think about it, it's these spiders have stayed in the same place. Like they stayed evil, and the others traveled and like went north and they changed, which is kind of like it, I don't think you should live outside your hometown at least once. You know, like you should like I feel like the more you travel and you like broaden your horizons, it's like that's what the spiders in the north have done.
Well, and we will get more information on them, so I don't want to accidentally give spoilers, but
Mhm.
I do wonder if the spiders that traveled north were exactly the same as the ones that have stayed in the south, or like they're the same breed, but they had different roles
Well, I kept
before.
waiting for them to actually help the other side, for it to be like them to be like, "You know what? We're gonna help you guys instead of helping the bad guys." But I think that would have been a cool twist.
It would have. The Hearth Mother looks to Nezrin and says, "It's starting anew, isn't it? The one who sleeps has awoken." Nezrin confirms Erewhon has returned and they fill her in on what they know. She asks if the Coggin is aware and he knows bits and pieces, but rather than waste time trying to convince him to listen to theories, Sartek has come to learn what Hulin knew.
The Coggin and his wife have also been in so they've been so deep in their mourning that they're not doing much of anything right now. Like the Coggin is not going to declare war right now. When his Hearth Mother asks what he'll do with this information, will Sartak take the Rooks and Riders to go fight in this war? Nezrin realizes that Sartak isn't here for answers. Like, he's made up his mind what he's going to do. He's here to convince his people to fight.
Sartek reveals Hulin is a story keeper, not just someone who knows the history of the Rukin, but someone with a rare gift for remembering and telling legends and histories.
Is this a little like crossbreed? The
Oh,
that where they like pass down the
oh
information through
shoot, where are they? It starts with
genetics?
an R. Relics.
Relics. But what else? There's another series we read where we were like, oh, this is kind of like the relics. Like that
Um,
you there's like I guess that's just something that pops up in fantasy a lot, where it's like people who
maybe I mean, because this is definitely like Imris at
Mhm.
Mistward also.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
didn't
know,
even
like
think about that.
he was
Uh-huh.
getting stories from, and it wasn't just Fae or humans passing by. He was
Mhm.
getting all kinds of stories to like hold
Pride
on
Month.
to.
Wow. We all full circle.
There we go.
She tells a story that the Hearth Mother tells a story that predates the Coggins, the Horse Lords, and even the Torre. When a rip appeared in the world in these very mountains, there was a fucking word gate here,
Through the word gate, Karen Kui and other beasts and horrors entered this world.
which means the Stygian spiders are Vogue. And you're
Most
like, duh, but sometimes they circle like a point several times before they actually say it.
Yeah, but it's also crazy. There have been rumors about Stygian spiders for who knows how many years. Like
Mhm.
Nezrin had definitely heard of them long before the Vogue had shown
Yep.
themselves. So like it
Yeah, she
sucks to
thought
be
they
like,
were a myth.
well, like oh shit, the Vogue didn't just show themselves, did
Mhm.
they? They've been around in some form.
Well, and
Most
you go back to Kale and Irene that are like, I wonder why we have all this information here in the southern continent. It's like Nezrin is figuring it out.
Yeah, she's doing her best. Most of the Vogue left, some in north, but the Karen Kui remained, perhaps to guard the way back, to wait for the door to open again. After the First Vogue War, the one fought between the three Vogue kings and the Fae, including Maeve, Brandon, and Athril, the Fae traveled to the Tavin Mountains to teach the Rooks to fight the Karanqui.
Speaking of Lord of the Rings, they built watchtowers with warning beacons along the mountains, which have since fallen into disrepair. Sartak asks if there's anything that she knows about how the Vogue can be defeated. Like, is there any power that can help fight Erewhon's armies? And Hulin's like, why don't you ask your girlfriend?
It's just a moment where, like, again, we talked about this last week. I forgot who doesn't know what.
I know. It's so like sometimes when they're asking questions, I'm like, duh, the word keys. And it's like, oh, he doesn't know.
But
And
even
then when she's talking about it, I'm like, oh, she doesn't know that Aelin has one.
honestly, when I read that scene, my mind didn't even go to the word keys. I was like, you mean the healers? Like, like what? Like, I just was not on the same page. And then Nesrin's thinking with the word keys. And I was like, oh, yeah, duh.
Oh, yeah.
Sartak is not thrilled to learn that Nesrin has been holding something back, but she's too scared to even say the word keys. It's their one hope in closing the gate forever.
Hulin suggests they visit the closest Fey watchtower because maybe there's some clue to how they fought the Vow. Like maybe they left their notes behind. Maybe there's a how-to.
Like anything, even their weapons, like maybe there's got to be something there. Back in Antica, Kale is spread out before Irene.
With his leg braced against her shoulder.
Wow.
Like, obviously they're exercising, but for a minute, it sounds like Irene's fucking Kale.
I mean, like, I was like, are you in your undershorts? Like, what's exposed here?
Well, the undershorts, like, have, like, the buttons are kind of spread apart. So, like, if you're bent, there's going to be a gap.
Also, these are not like jockey shorts. So, like, if these are undershorts, are we looking at your balls too? Like, what's happening?
God.
What's she looking up his legs
I
at?
actually have a neighbor. We call him Nut Shorts.
No.
He's like this older man, and he always wear these shorty shorts. And I've seen his balls way too many times.
Gross. Blech.
And we're just like, I'll get home and I'm like, Nut Shorts is out there in his fucking shorts.
God. And actually, that takes me back to Ted Lasso again, because that first coach that they had.
I haven't watched that in like the first season in so long. I think I only watched it with you.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I love Ted Lasso. But and I can't think of his name, but the original coach they had before Ted definitely has his balls out because he's always in shorts that are too short.
It's just so fucking gross.
Well, anyway, back to Irene and Kale. Irene has noticed a shift in Kale.
Not only is he up working with the guards every morning, but he's not shaving. He's letting his hair down. He's unclenching his butthole for the first time ever. Like it sounds like a small thing, but Kale is so like rigid and not militarized, but he's just like, for him not to shave is actually a big deal.
He's very regimented.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Think of that other word. While I'm talking, try to think of that
I
other
think
word.
it was covet.
I don't know. That's not what I was trying to think of.
Okay.
As a child, Kale was heir of Aniel. He had an uptight asshole father. Then he was captain of the guards. Then he was leading the rebels. So Kale's never really had any downtime, and he hasn't had the time or space to figure out who he is without a title or a uniform. And like he still has a title, but here it's like he can be anonymous. He can be anyone he wants to be.
He's far enough removed that he has a moment to like, and he's actually there to do something for himself as well, to heal. So he has an opportunity to like think about what he wants and who he wants to be.
It's like when you're in a different country or a different city and you're just kind of like freer, you know?
Even just going on vacation, getting away from your daily like stress and having a moment to like think of other things. They fight the darkness inside Kale every day. Irene shoving back against the pain, the rage, and all of that guilt. She can only chip away a little at a time, but it's still progress.
And she can see, like, there are times where she can kind of see what he's seeing, but she just gets little clips. But I would hate that. Like, my darkest, worst memories, I wouldn't want someone to be able to see that.
I think that's actually probably a good thing, though. Like, she can see just a little bit, but she's not like right in it with him. So she can focus on what's happening around him.
I'm too nosy. I'd just be sitting there like it's a movie, like watching everything and be like, and then he did what?
But if that was the case, though, I'd be like, God, are we thinking about this again? Like, stop wallowing. Like,
this is actually getting on my nerves at this
I would
point.
not be very understanding. Irene tells Kale about some of the ancient healers that she's been researching, like Linquin, who made a magical brace using a talisman, like an exoskeleton, that allowed people with spinal injuries to walk.
I think that is so interesting. And like, it doesn't really come up.
I know there's so many other
But there's, like,
potential
side
options,
stories, yeah.
but it's like, if we could just figure out how she did it, there's
Mhm.
so much more as healers they can do, like, it would be so neat. It'd be neat,
Neat.
if they're able to find more information. And Sanvi, who plays some sort of tiny magical shard of stone in the brain.
Kale's like, "Let's not do that one because this is not like" yeah, they have healers, but they don't have, like, full-blown ORs and surgeons, you know?
Yeah, let's calm down.
But all of that knowledge was lost because the healers worked at the Torre outpost, so they were so isolated that by the time people thought to record it, the records were lost.
Kale's like, "Are you keeping records on me?"
Dear diary, today Kale was a fucking asshole, and apparently he sleeps naked. Like the diary would be like, "Dear diary, Kale sleeps naked."
I mean, if she literally was gonna use Kale to teach these young girls, like, I know that they were teaching self-defense, but even just how to maneuver him in and out of a chair
Mhm.
or off a horse, like, of course she's taking rigid
Yeah.
notes, Kale. All that to be said, it's been done before, and she knows that it's taking time to heal him, and he's anxious to
But he
return.
cuts her off, like, yes, he needs to return, but he's not gonna rush her. What he is doing is towering over her when he sits up. Things
It's
are getting like that line is getting blurrier and blurrier.
I mean, it's wild though because there's that moment where, like, your personalities have been leading, if you're, like, bickering with somebody or laughing or joking and suddenly you get too close and you're like,
Mhm.
"Wow, this is, hey, a lot all at once." Like, it just changes your perception a lot.
And it kind of the way that they've positioned this where they're on the ground, it allows Kale to be that, like, imposing force that he's always been, you know?
Well, they're
To,
kind
like, be,
of
like, towering over her.
on, I wanna say even footing, but that's only because I can't think of other way
Yeah.
to
I
phrase
mean,
that because
that's
he's not
how dare you
standing.
say that about him?
But, like, they're both sitting, so
Yeah.
it's not like one is sitting and one is standing,
Mhm.
and she has a moment to realize, like, "Wow, he is, much bigger than me."
Mhm.
Kale and Irene visit Nusha in the library, not to look for more books, but to find out why those books and scrolls were in the Torre library in Antica to begin with, why they were needed
If
here.
they could just text Nezrin, you know? There aren't records for acquisitions that old, like why those books would be there, but there are rumors that out in the desert, there are caves with that information. Most have been lost, but there was one in Oxara Oasis, which isn't that far to get to, but it is owned by the royals. I love the idea of an oasis
I
in the
mean,
desert.
and it sounds really cool.
Mhm.
And asking for access, of course, would raise too many questions.
Irene refuses to ask caution, which is it's weird that that's where her mind went first instead of Hussar.
Because Hassar, like, it's almost like you don't want to give her too much information because,
Yeah.
friend or not, she might use it against
Well,
you.
this is what I was talking about earlier is she's like, I don't really want to go to Hussar because what if she tries to like recruit me to be a spy again? That's just not really me. And because she's not good at intrigue. And Kale is like, I find that refreshing. I don't know why that pissed me off so much because I'm not Aelin and like, why would I be taking this personally? That's crazy. But y'all are fucking so lucky that Aelin is as smart and cunning as she is, that she's such a good liar, like that she's so good at intrigue, or you guys would have no chance at winning. You'd have what? Dorian's little manners? Is that going to help y'all win?
I love that you're so angry on Aylin's behalf
I know.
because
I read this like I'm Aelin. Like, why am I so mad right now?
I mean, I used to not even like Kale, and I still didn't read it that way, only because Kale is really bad at intrigue and, like,
Yeah.
small talk, so I
I read
think
it as like, wow, I've been with some people that were liars. It's nice to have someone who's not good at it.
well, because Kale's been so negative about Aylin for
Yeah.
so long, but and maybe that is part of it, I read it more like Kale's not prepared to try to sift through that, so it's refreshing that Irene is just also,
Like
like,
an open book.
yeah, she's not
What's
comfortable playing games
easier?
either.
Yeah,
Well, because Aylin also lied to Kale on multiple levels and kept
that's
things
true.
back from him, so it's refreshing to not have to worry that you don't know the whole
When
story.
you're right, you're right.
I mean, it is a dig at Aylin in some ways, so you're not wrong either.
We're both right.
I love that for us. As Kale is preparing to leave, Irene blurts out a dinner invite.
Not because she's scared of whatever is hunting her. I mean, she probably is a little scared of whatever is hunting her, but she just wants to spend time with Kale, the real Kale, the one that she's just now really getting to know. And she might be the only one who's ever met the real Kale.
Yeah, because he always had so much pressure on him. Again, like,
He always had his title, his uniform, his duty, his bowl cut. Like he always had so many things that it's like around him that to the core of his person. Who is he?
Well, when we first met Kale, he was judging Aelin or
Yeah.
Selena. So, like, obviously she brought him around to, like, a loyalty, but we didn't meet him being very nice,
Yeah.
you know? But also I love that earlier in the book, Irene would not share dinner with Kale, and now she's
I
like, "Do you wanna
know.
go to dinner?"
Yeah.
Instead of eating at the Torre, Kale suggests eating somewhere in the city, and Irene leads him to a place 5 blocks away.
Has Kale never seen a restaurant before? This was weird to me because he is talking about, yeah, I've been to private dining rooms with Dorian, but this is a place just for eating, only for eating. It's open to the public and it's full of tables and chairs. Like, Kale, it's called a fucking restaurant.
I assume that Otterlin doesn't have any
That's
because
crazy.
but Otterlin is very, very big on being, like, classist. So
But
it's very
I
much like, I can afford a private dining room and you can't. A public house is for those people.
Well, what
Like,
about the place that Aelin and what was that whore's name? Archer?
yeah,
That Aelin and Archer went to. I thought they
that
like
was
went to a little.
a private dining room is not somebody's home. I
Oh,
think, like, it's a tea or, like, you have to be a member of the club to eat
okay.
there.
Okay. So yeah,
So,
I
like,
I was like, man, Kale doesn't know what a restaurant
yeah, I
is.
think that he's seen restaurants if you think of, like, the
Okay.
quote,
But they like
"dining
wouldn't
rooms"
let
like
poor
that.
people in.
Right, but it's not somewhere that just anybody could eat. Like, he's not
Okay.
seen
So
something
this
like
is
that.
another example of like the southern continent being progressive.
Yeah, because again, like, I could imagine Sartak walking up and sitting down to eat and nobody batting an eye that the prince is there,
Yeah.
but, like, you would never find something like that in Otterland.
Mhm.
More than a few heads turn their way, not because the hand of the king of Otterland just rolled in, but for the Torre healer. So, like you were saying before, it's the first time that Kale's had a meal is just Kale.
I mean, Aelin threw you a whole ass birthday dinner, but okay.
But again, that was like it
He
was
was
like
still like he still had his duty. He was still captain of the guards or
well,
whatever.
there's also a bunch of romantic meaning behind everything that happened
She worked
then.
really hard on that birthday party.
Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful.
Remember the Nutella cake? I mean, what sounded to me like Nutella cake?
Well, isn't that the same night that she delivered the line about, like, how great Kale is, or, like, there should be more men like Kale?
Yeah,
I
she
forgot
really
exactly what the
probably
phrasing
regrets
was.
that.
Well, she definitely
Imagine a world full of
had
chaos.
to take a step back from that one, like, "Whoops." But this is like, there's no underline, like, they're not on a date, they're just
I mean,
being each
are
other.
they not?
I mean, like, technically they are, but, like, that wasn't the
Yeah.
intention. So I'm guessing that's what he's thinking. But it's also not something that Irene gets to do much of either. Like, she's always really busy at the Torre and doesn't have many friends, except Caution and Hussar. But
Is Caution your friend? Because you still haven't said like, "Hey, I'm sorry your sister died."
I mean, yeah, well, like, she's like, poor Caution. Like, they were friends and she's definitely keeping her distance until he gets the picture. But she hasn't really had the opportunity to just, like, relax and enjoy someone's company. It makes her feel guilty just thinking about all the people that she could be
But
helping.
chaos stops her. She shouldn't feel selfish for taking time for herself. Like to me, it's whenever I hear especially moms talking about like, like how they feel selfish doing things for themselves because they have kids. I'm like, it's like when you're on a plane and they tell you to put your mask on first because you can't help anybody until you help yourself.
That's so true.
I know. I came up with it on my own, not
I
even
mean,
Chat GPT.
I know, but, like, you're so deep. But it is true, like, I can understand wanting to give everything to somebody else, and a lot of our characters, maybe part of the reason we love them is because they are martyrs and they wanna help
That's
others,
not
but
me. I always put me first.
well, like, yeah, if you have to, like, take care of you in order to be able to take care of others.
Mhm.
Kale thinks that maybe if they survive this war, they can both learn how to live.
It's almost a callback or a parallel to Aelin and Rowan because she said, like, "You make me want to live, Rowan, not survive, not exist, live." And then later on, he told her, "You make me want to live too, not exist, but live." So this is kind of like they're having a little moment.
I love it for them because they're seeing each other
Mhm.
without, like, putting deeper meanings and context behind it. They
We talk
are.
about that with all of these couples are really they're
Yeah.
the only ones who truly see each other.
They're Irene and they're Kale right now.
Mhm.
They talk as they dine, Irene telling Kale about her initial months at the Torre, and surprisingly, he tells her about Brolo, which is so sweet. Someone he hasn't been able to talk about since he saw the man who was like a father to him hanging from the castle gate. The pain doesn't go away, but he finds that talking about it helps.
It helps him, but then it's also well, first of all, this man has just figured out therapy. Talking helps. But it's also like you're doing a disservice to the man by not talking about how great he was because
Yeah.
his legacy deserves to be talked about, you
Yeah, it's
know?
a disservice to his memory.
Kale escorts Irene back to the Torre and, unable to say what's really on his mind, I can't take my eyes off of you. Is that the song? I can't take my eyes off of you.
Yeah.
Kale reaches out to brush his fingers over hers, and her fingers curl in response.
Ooh, it's very Pride and Prejudice when they touch
Yes.
skin for the first time. As Kale rides back to the palace, he feels some weight in his chest and on his shoulders vanish. Weight he hadn't even been aware that he'd been carrying.
This is like therapy. Like,
Literally.
they all need therapy. While Kale is enjoying his little date, Nezrin is on a secret, or supposed to be secret, mission to the watchtower of Eilidon, which in, did I say it wrong again?
Eidolon.
Eidolon. You say it.
You said Eilidon.
Like you say it. You just say that part. I'll just
Okay.
say which in ancient Greece.
Oh, do you want to just say this the
Yeah, I'll
sentence
take over
again?
after to which in ancient Greece because my mind, I can't type and my mind's not going to remember that.
Okay. I was gonna say, do you want to just say the sentence again and I'll insert it?
No, like you say a while until that, and then I'll take over with which in ancient Egypt,
Okay.
ancient Greece.
While Kale is enjoying his little date, Nezrin is on a secret, or supposed to be secret, mission to the Watchtower of Eidolon.
Which in ancient Greece was a spirit image of a living or dead person, kind of like a shade or a phantom look-alike. And the most famous example is Helen of Troy, because Euripides had a play, Helen, and it was suggested in that play that the Helen who went to Troy with Paris, was a phantom created by the gods to like get this war going, while the real Helen was taken to Egypt. So like a lot of the mythology around that puts the blame on Helen, whether it was she was willing or not. It was her fault that the war
Wow.
happened, but this kind of like took that blame off of her.
Yeah, because the gods created the
Mhm.
phantom of her. I'm very impressed with the way you said Euripides. That
See,
was
why do I
impressive.
know how to say that one and not the simpler things?
I don't know, but that's a mouthful. Very
I think
impressive.
it's because of Xena.
Oh,
I
that'll
think he
help.
was in Xena.
Probably. The watchtower sits right on the border to the Doggle Fells, the territory of the Karen Kui. The upper levels have been destroyed, leaving only 2 floors above the ground, both exposed to the elements.
Kadara drops Nezrin and Sartak off nearby, then begins circling overhead because, like, that's a big bird. You can't just like perch somewhere and have it collapse.
Yeah.
As they walk up to the tower, Nezrin's like, "Man, it's fucking." She's just kind of like rambling, like it's fucking cold. No wonder they abandoned it. And Sartak is smiling, but he presses a finger to his lips.
Ooh.
It's very Pippin and Moria. Like,
Yeah.
please shut up.
Poor Nesrin's like, oh, you're right. The stone archway is flanked by twin statues of birds, but not rooks, owls, the symbol of Silba of the Torre.
Nezrin stops Sartak from walking down a stairwell, reminding him what the Hearth Mother said about traps. Seeing her cringe at having grabbed a prince, Sartak reminds her that out here they're just 2 captains. Be like, what do captains do where you're from?
Mm-hmm.
She rolls rocks down the stairs, triggering hidden bolts, very like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And they assume the Fae memorized which stairs to avoid, but I would be, if they were like, okay, it's the 2nd and the 10th stair, I would be so fucking dead. Like, I'm never gonna remember that. I can't remember my phone passcode
I
sometimes.
need to transfer into or change into some kind of bird and just fly down there
Yeah.
because it's too much. Right as she's saying they wouldn't have used an easy pattern, the floor disappears right from under her, and Sartak grabbing her is the only thing that stops her from falling into a field of metal spikes.
Which is nice, but he also grunts at her weight, like, okay, next time just let me fall. It's also interesting to see how Kale and Nezrin's stories are still like they've split. They're going down different paths, but they're parallel paths. Like it's more obvious with Kale and Irene, but there are subtle moments between Nezrin and Sartak. Like he saves her, and also a little bit of a parallel with Adian and Lysandra. Like he saves her from falling, and she's obviously shaken up. Like so, he's sitting with her and just like brushing his hand down her braid while she composes herself, like until she's ready to keep going. Just like being a solid comfort.
Yeah, he's supporting her. When they finally reach the bottom layer, the dungeon, they find 5 open cells, their doors ripped off.
It's very Crown of Midnight when they go
Yeah,
down under
underneath
the
the castle
Mhm.
and the library. In the center of the room is a stone table covered with dark stains and a work table with an assortment of weapons, including a long dagger with markings carved down its center that Nesrin claims.
A short sword that shines as if imbued with starlight, with carvings down the fuller, and that's like the groove in the blade down the middle. So I had to
Sartak
look it up because I was like, the what?
Sartak says the still sharp blades were probably made by the Fey Smiths in Asterion to the east of Doranel, perhaps even before the Demon Wars. We know the Asterion for the horses, like the ones Aelin and Ansel stole in Assassin's Blade, but in addition to being horse breeders, they were great smiths.
And y'all already know what we're going to talk about. Like anytime we have a sword that's pointed out or like sounds special, we're going to try to connect it to somewhere else in the mass verse. First of all, Asterion, that's always stood out to me. And then this description, my mind goes to the Star Sword and Truth Teller. Like, I don't think this is actually like literally Truth Teller and that Sartak, whatever he takes, is the Star Sword or Gwydion, whatever, Gwydion. They they could have been made by the same people though.
Yeah.
Like we know Fionn dipped the sword into the cauldron and there were two figures present. One was Thea. The other we still don't know who it was. You know, like when he was making Star Sword and Truth Teller and they dipped it into the cauldron, there was one. We know who one person was, but there's an unknown, and we assume that it might have been like an alias, or maybe I don't know who it would have been if it's not an alias. But it's just like there's so many things that could be connected here. I don't know if that made any sense, but it's like when I hear imbued with starlight, I'm gonna think about the Starborn Fae, and we know that we're led to believe that they were the original Starborn Fae, Fionn and Thea. We don't actually know that for sure. We didn't even know that she existed until House of Flame and Shadow, you know? Like, we thought that Peleus was the original Starborn Fae or, like, Starborn Prince, and that he went up against the princes of hell and everything. So, like, I think that there's something in the Massverse about not trusting history.
Yeah.
So, it could be these could be maybe the people who taught people in other worlds how to make some of these weapons.
Well, SJM does this a lot, though, to the point that anytime you see something that you've seen in one of the other stories, you can't help but question with it being a mass verse. You're like, is this?
Mhm.
And she did tell us in Crescent City that there are callbacks to the Throne of Glass world.
Yeah.
So now we can't help it. We're nitpicking everything we find. Like, is this? Is
But
this
what I
what she
don't
meant?
understand is like, okay, so they opened up to Midgard and people came over from Throne of Glass, which I always forget what they called it, what the Asteri called it. I think it started with like an X and had too many consonants. But then there people like they came over from Akatar to help like it's like the Asteri brought in people from two different worlds. So what I don't see is the connection between Throne of Glass and Akatar because they came from Aurelia to Midgard and they came from Prithian to Midgard. But did people go from Prithian to Aurelia or Aurelia to Prithian? Does that make any sense? You know what
Yeah,
I'm
I don't.
saying?
She hasn't given us that
I can
information
see
for
Midgard
Prithian.
being in the middle, but I don't know how the other two would connect.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean, everybody's got a lot of hopes put on ACOTAR 6, but
Mhm.
we keep wondering if there'll be a connection in some way to bring those 2 together.
Yeah.
Nesrin and Sartak find words written in blood in the old language of the Fae.
And this is again, like, I'm assuming it's the old language the royals of Terrasen use. Like, remember when Kael was, like, watching a very intimate moment where Aelin was singing at Nehemia's grave, and he's like,
Mhm.
"Wow, she's actually not that good of a singer." But then he looked up the language, and it was, like, an old language. I guess that's what this language is, the
Yeah.
old language of the Fae. What I don't know is if this is one of there's an old language of the Fae spoken in Midgard and Prithian. Like, that is the old language that the Kelpie that Amryn, like, because Nesta shows them what the Kelpie said, and Amryn's like, "Oh, that hasn't been heard in 15,000 years," but Rhys knows it. And then when Bryce comes over, she can speak that, which would mean that there's potential for the 3 royals from the 3 series, Rhys, Bryce, and Aelin, they could all be speaking the same language, which I don't know why that would matter, but it's very neat to me.
It is a way to bring them all
It's
together.
just, like, cool.
It is cool. Unfortunately, Nesrin and Sartak can't read the old language.
But the words are translated for them as a spider emerges. Look up. What is this making me think of with, like, blood or something written somewhere and you don't know what it says, but it's saying, like, "Look up," or, like it's, like, making me think of
It's a
something.
very like a makes me feel like a vampire movie, but
Yeah.
I can't remember either off the top of my head. A carrion quee, bigger than a horse, with black and gray skin, mottled with splotches of white, multiple black eyes and fangs dripping with venom, lunges as Nezrin fires an arrow. But the spider is too fast and it hits the hard shell of her abdomen.
It's funny to me, though, that she's describing this, like, horrifying creature, but then she's kind of like is also kinda sexy. Like, this spider is a little sexy and sleek.
She moves very quickly as
Mhm.
well. Sartak slashes a leg, black blood spraying, but spiders between them and the door.
Until a blur of motion sends the spider crashing through the room, and it's not Kadara, it's a gray wolf.
Nezrin and Sartak run up the stairs and through the doorway just as the spider sets a trap for the wolf.
Who immediately falls for it because the wolf just really isn't that smart.
Oh.
But as the spider leaps, Kadara intercepts, and once the spider has fallen on its back, the rook tears its talons. This is like an ancient rivalry. Like, this rook has probably never actually fought a spider, but it's like in their DNA to fucking hate each other.
Yeah.
His talons just tear into the underbelly, and Kadara is just like covered in black blood, but it's like having a blast.
Kadara is like, no, you fucking don't. They whirl to the wolf, whose edges shimmer until the wolf form shrinks into a man, Falcon.
Sartak is immediately distrustful because, like we've talked about, shapeshifters have never been trusted. Like, even before magic disappeared in Otterlin or whatever, like all over the world, universally, they are assassins or spies, but they're just not to be trusted.
Well, also, he was out of place in general, being down at their hearth, like searching for
Yeah, like,
information on the Karen
Ariana,
Queen.
what are you doing here?
Like, you're not supposed to be here. And then now I find out you could be, like, you're a shapeshifter. You could be
Mhm.
one of these things. Like, I understand being distrustful.
Well, also with the shapeshifter, what would always fuck with my head is like, do I have I ever seen the real you? Because I have no way of even if is Falcon the real you? Are you actually someone that I've met in your height? Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, you
Is
would
this your
never know.
face? But Falcon isn't a spy or assassin.
He's a merchant who grew up in Otterland, not even knowing that he had the gift. It ran in his family, but by the time magic vanished, he'd assumed that he hadn't gotten it. So I'm does that mean that shapeshifters, like, they have to mature into their gifts? Because Lysander turned pretty young. Why was he at an age
Well, he's only, what did we say he was?
25?
25? I mean, Lysandra's like maybe 2021. He's only a couple years older than her.
Okay.
So maybe
So I
because,
guess there was a big age gap between her
but also she randomly turned into, was it a hissing cat?
yeah.
And I don't think that Lysandra was in any kind of healthy environment with her mom. It sounded like
Mhm.
they weren't living in a great area. So
Yeah.
maybe he just was more pampered. He didn't, I don't know, something, maybe he didn't have time for it to happen or something to
Yeah.
happen.
But
I
I
don't know,
also forget that he really isn't that much older than her.
which is crazy
Yeah.
too. But when Falcon arrived in the southern continent as a newly aged man, close to his 50s, thanks to his deal, he could shift.
Sartak is still not convinced, but as Nezrin points out, he did just save our lives. Even if it was he's actually trying to kill he's like, if I killed this spider, he's just like gonna start killing spiders. He's like, if I kill this spider, is it gonna return the years that I traded away to that other spider? But just as Falcon faints in his arms, Nezrin tells him, I have a friend who's a shifter.
I mean, like, even if he is your enemy, like, you need more information. Don't just leave him to die.
Right.
Like, you don't, there's so much more to gather
It
here.
is a pain in the ass, though, to try to fly with someone I act like I know. Try to fly with someone who's unconscious and just, like, throwing off the balance because 'cause
I
they're
mean,
dead weight.
I was like, can you imagine just having to try to lift his body onto Kadara? Like, good grief, I'm not this
Kadara's like,
strong.
"Fuck,
God, put in the, like,
put in
put
the
it,
trunk."
well, say, put him in her talons. Like, let her just grab him.
Oh, yeah.
They fly an unconscious falcon back to the area where no one asks how he'd gotten out there in the first place, except Borte, who also noticed the black blood all over Kadara and the new Feyblade that Nezrin's carrying.
After Borte swears not to breathe a word of it to anyone, Nezrin tells her everything that happened. And Sartak follows Nezrin into her room, like, gets up in her business and asks about the word keys. And she's like, "The word what?"
What? While they were gone, the Hearth Mother remembered more stories, like one of a word gate, the Vogue, and
Because
their
it was
kings
to
passed
before
through.
she was just saying there was a rip in the world, but now she suddenly remembered WYRD word.
Yeah, I was saying, well, she remembered how, like, a story of them arriving, but now she's remembering more of the details. So she's remembering, like, the one with the word gate that the Vogue and their kings passed through. It's a gate that could open at will with 3 keys wielded together.
She also remembered those 3 keys went missing after they were used to send 2 of the kings back. Sartax put it together that Erewhon has at least 1 key. Like, for him to have done what he's done, like what he's created in the army that he's built, he has at least one. And he asked where the other 1 or 2 are, and Nezrin genuinely doesn't know that Aelin has one. And no one knows that Elide has the other one. So that's one that's like up in the air.
Hulin has also learned the locations of the 3 other watchtowers, and as soon as Falcon is healed, they'll fly to the first.
Only Sartek tells Nezrin, "You're going to be flying with Borte."
Are you mad at me?
Excuse me?
Come on. And that's not where we'll be picking up next week, because next week is all Empire of Storms.
As is the following week, we're going to do chapters 34 through 41 next week, and then the following week, 42 through 49, all Empire of Storms.
Okay, it'll be very exciting though. Help us find new book besties with ratings and reviews.
Thanks, y'all.